to Eye on Horror, the official podcast of iHorror.com. This is episode 128, otherwise known as season 7, episode 9. I am your host, James J. Edwards, and with me, as always, is your other host, Jacob Davison. How you doing, Jacob?
Doing well. Had a fun Father's Day yesterday.
Father's Day, yeah, we'll hear more about what you did. But before we get into that, here's your other host, John Correia. How you doing, Correia?
Doing pretty good. I got invited to a live recording of an episode of Critical Role, a part of their
nice
Bell's Hells campaign, and my partner Lindsay, they're very into Critical Role. I'm not. I can't sit and watch people play tabletop games, but Critical Role is, it's of course their voice actors, and it was at the Greek Theater, so they really put on like a show with it, and it was a lot of fun. I don't think I could sit and watch episodes, but to experience it live was really, really great. If you don't, so yeah, I highly recommend it.
It sounds like watching the episodes of The Big Bang Theory where they're playing D&D.
Way more entertaining.
What's been going on? You guys see anything new? I saw a couple new things.
Yeah.
Have you heard of this movie called Humanist Vampire Seeking Consenting Suicidal Person? That's what the movie is.
Great job.
No, but the title is incredible and pretty much tells us everything we need to know.
It pretty much does. Yeah. It's about a reluctant vampire. She looks teenage, but it turns out she's 68 years old. But vampires. And she doesn't, her parents and her family are all on her. They're like, oh, you have to make your first kill. We're tired of, killing for you and feeding you. And she thinks that she solved her problem because she meets this suicidal guy who's willing to die for her to keep her alive. But it gets a little messy because she makes friends with him, and then there's other things that happen. But it's but you know what it does? It does for vampire movies what Warm Bodies did for zombies. It doesn't really turn it into like a rom-com kind of a thing because it's not really romantic. It's more like they are they just become like best friends. They don't, but it kind of humanizes the monsters, if that makes any sense, because clearly her name's Sasha, the girl, reluctant vampire, is clearly the hero of this, even though, she's one of the most age-old monsters in movie history. But yeah, it's fun. It's a really dark movie, both aesthetically and humor wise, and got some cool little surprises in it. So yeah.
Sounds like a nice double feature with Let the Right One In.
It could be, yeah. It could be.
Yeah.
As for me, yesterday was Father's Day, and the Cinematheque had a fantastic double feature that I felt exemplified the spirit of fatherhood more than anything. And by that, they had a double feature of the 1990s action movie classics, Con Air and Air Force One, because nothing says Father's Day more than action dads on airplanes fighting criminals and terrorists and stuff.
Get off my plane.
Put the bunny in the box. Con Air, dude, Cameron Poe is the father that we all want in Con Air.
He waited 8 years to see his daughter because he didn't want her to see him in prison. That is dedication. And it is just crazy how stacked those casts were, because you got Nicolas Cage and John Cusack leading Con Air. Then you've got Harrison Ford and William H. Macy leading Air Force One. And then you got classic bad guys with John Malkovich as Cyrus the Virus in Con Air, and Gary Oldman as, I forget his name, but the Russian terrorist in Air Force One. And yeah, no, just they both really exemplify cinema of their times. And that's when cinema was very fun, because it was a very rowdy show, because people were applauding and laughing and yelling at a bunch of the scenes between both movies. Yeah, they Get Off My Plane got a lot of applause. And also Con Air is so weird to me because there's that whole subplot with Steve Buscemi being the notorious serial killer. What was it, Grissom Green?
Yeah, he's Hannibal Lecter, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Steve Buscemi's Hannibal Lecter, and he doesn't even really do anything in the movie. He's just sitting there menacingly.
Except escape. He's the guy who gets away at the end.
But I think it's like he reformed, like because there's kind of a through line. It's like, can criminals reform? And he has that tea party little girl, but he leaves her alone, and he seems kind of chill about murder now, I guess, even though he wore a person's head as a hat while driving across state lines.
I don't think he's reformed. The last thing you see of him, isn't he at like a roulette table or a blackjack?
Yeah, exactly.
Table
He's gambling. He's got a martini.
It's a Hannibal Lecter moment. I'm having a friend for dinner. I mean, I don't think he's reformed. I think they should make a movie about him.
Yeah, they should.
His own movie.
That whole scene with the little girl and Steve Buscemi came off like Frankenstein's monster and the little girl in.
Oh,
in
yeah, that is a good comparison.
The very onside scene, like that whole time, you're just sitting there going, "The fuck is he gonna do to that little girl? Oh dear God!" But way more menace because like Frankenstein, at least it's like, oh, this is fun. Whereas Con Air, it's like something horrible is gonna happen to this very adorable, very innocent child, and I'm terrified.
Thankfully not, but it definitely kept you on edge. But no, both movies truly exemplify the spirit of fatherhood in that a real father would be willing to fight his way through terrorists airborne to see their child again and save their families.
That is an awesome Father's Day double feature.
Speaking of children dying in movies,
King of Segways.
Welcome to Correia's Book Corner. I just got this amazing book from Vinegar Syndrome, The Sweetest Taboo, an unapologetic guide to child kills in film.
What?
Written by Erica Schultz with an introduction by Zach Carlson. And it is the go-to step-by-step or film-by-film guide on children dying in movies. And it's a lot. It's very similar to if you ever got the Punks in Movie book as well, where they basically go film by film. They give you a little bit of a setup. They talk about the kill and its relations to it. So just flipping through it, they have it set up in sections and chapters such as like, Whoopsie is chapter 1. There's When Animals and Insects Attack, Vehicles, like vehicles, but vehicles. The Hand That Kills, so on and so forth. But it's a very interesting book. I highly recommend it. They only made 1,000 copies of it. So go to Vinegar Syndrome and get it, because these type of books, they're super limited run. And then
well, it's sold out. Like I'm looking on the website, it's sold out right now.
Well, maybe I'll post some sections later. I don't know. I did also get some Satanic Panic books that I will be reviewing on our social medias at some point, because they are ridiculous.
And real quick, any movies that popped up from the book that feature child murder?
That's the whole book.
But yeah, I know. But can you name a few examples?
Oh, a few examples. Let's open a random page. So we have Where the Red Fern Grows is one.
Ooh, I read that in elementary school.
And they rate it too. The movie by stars and the child death, they rate it. It's one. I think it's 1 out of 4 for both.
Yeah.
But
I see. There's a big poster of When a Stranger Calls.
Oh yeah, I saw that too.
Jungle Holocaust, Killer Crocodile 2. That's the one section I read was the Crocodile or Killer Crocodile 2. And they talked about how there was a lack of child kills in the first one, and so they made up for it in like the opening of the second one. It's really tongue in cheek in a fun book. Highly, yeah. So sorry, you're gonna have to get a secondhand market unless they do a repress.
Speaking of dying kids, King of Segways. I saw this movie. It's one of the weirdest movies of the year, and it's actually inspired me to make a top 10 weird movies list this year. It's called Tuesday. You guys hear about Tuesday?
Yeah, with Julie Louis-Dreyfus, right?
Julie Louis-Dreyfus, yeah.
Love her.
It's basically it's an A24 movie, so that kind of tells you how weird it is. But it's basically death. It takes the form of a bird, like this macaw, parakeet kind of a thing. But it's also kind of a shape-shifting bird because it like grows to the size of a person, or it can get like super tiny. And Julie Louis-Dreyfus's daughter is terminally ill with something, and this bird comes for her, and she ends up making friends with the bird. So the bird doesn't want to take her, but he knows, he's like, oh, I have to. This is my job as death to take you. And, stuff happens, and, it gets kind of horrific because as the the kid is trying to buy time so that she can see her mom over time, because it happens when her mom's not home. So the bird is neglecting its duties as death. So people who should be dying are not dying. So you've got like telephone pole repair guys cut in half crawling around who aren't dying because death isn't there to take them. It's a crazy movie. But what I've been telling people is I did not have terminally ill teenager get stoned with death in the form of a bird on my 2024 cinematic bingo card, but that happens in Tuesday. So yeah, it's if you like weird movies, and more importantly, if you like weird A24 movies, because this movie screams A24. You know what you're getting into with it. But yeah, it's a crazy one.
That's awesome.
And speaking of weird movies, I had a good repertory run at the New Beverly last Friday. Like they were doing kind of all car movies, because they were doing a midnight of Death Proof over the weekend. But what I did was I went to the Friday matinee of Repo Man and followed that up with their double feature of Vanishing Point and Dirty Mary Crazy Larry, the latter two of which I had never seen before.
That's such a great triple feature. Oh,
exactly.
Man. Vanishing Point. Fuck
yeah, they really play well into each other, and they're all great commercials for the Dodge Challenger.
Those were also the two movies that one of the characters mentioned in Death Proof when they were talking
exactly
about
why
car
they
movies.
get the Dodge Challenger, so it all ties together. And Repo Man, it's a different car, but it's still one of my all-time favorite movies, and it was perfect timing too, because they just announced from the Criterion Collection that they're going to be putting out a 4K version of Repo Man coming this September,
which I am pre-ordering. I don't pre-order Criterion anymore. I wait for the sales, but I need Repo Man in 4K. That and the Greg Araki Doom. I'm
gonna say they're doing the Araki trilogy as well, which
they're really lining them up. And I was really in the mood too, because I also got the Repo Man vinyl soundtrack while I was at Monster Palooza a few weeks back, and it is still one of my all-time favorite scores, especially or soundtracks, especially with just the sheer amount of punk music on there from Iggy Pop, Black Flag, the Circle Jerks. It's just great listening music.
Let me tell you, in college, the rotation on my record player was Repo Man soundtrack and Return of the Living Dead, just nonstop, those two. And occasionally would put on Top Gun for Danger Zone.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's
not Mighty
spread.
Wings.
Yeah, it was all logins. It depended on how much I had to drink that night. If I came back drunk, it was Danger Zone blasting. Yeah.
What was the other login song on that, playing with the boys?
Volleyball
scene.
I don't. I'll be honest. I don't know Top Gun that well, which is weird because that was what my senior thesis in college was about. Was the re-release of Top Gun in 3D.
You were blasting "Take My Breath Away" every chance.
I was probably out cold by the time that song came on. To be honest, record skipping.
Have you guys ever seen that it was an HBO series called Big Little Lies?
No, I never really got into that one.
The Reese Witherspoon one?
It's Reese Witherspoon, Nicole Kidman, Laura Dern. It's got a stacked cast. Zoe Kravitz and Shailene Woodley are basically the leads, so to speak. But there are men in the cast too. Adam Scott is in there, and one of your Skarsgårds, not Bill, Alexander Skarsgård, maybe.
Oh,
one of the Skarsgårds,
the beefy one.
And it's basically, there's 2 seasons of it, and I got it because it was one of those sales on Vudu where you get like the whole series for $8, and I'm like, okay, cool. And it's a pretty quick watch. There are 14 episodes total for the series. And the first season basically deals with, from the beginning that there's a murder, and it basically deals with leading up to, and then the end of the last episode of that season is the murder. And then the second season is them dealing with the murder. And I don't really want to spoil anything and tell you who gets murdered or, anything like that. But let me tell you, I have never wanted to punch someone through the TV screen more than Meryl Streep in season 2, because she pops up, as Nicole Kidman's character's mother-in-law, and she does things that, it's a testament to how great an actress the woman is, because she literally, I wanted to strangle her through the TV screen because she's such a B word.
I was gonna say, if you want to meet out back, we can fight. If you want to punch Meryl Streep, I will step in front of that punch for her.
No, I do not want to punch Meryl Streep in the face. I want to punch Mary Louise in the face. Yeah, I want to punch her. And actually, someone actually does not punch, it's a slap, but yeah, somebody does what the audience wants to do to her in this. So, but yeah, it's not really horror, but there's a murder involved, and the one thing that kind of took me out of we're going to go back to Big Bang Theory, kind of. Shailene Woodley's kid in it is the kid who plays Sheldon in Young Sheldon.
Okay.
And whenever I'd see him, it would kind of take me out of it because I'm like, oh, that's freaking Sheldon. That's not Ziggy. That's Sheldon. I couldn't get it out of my head that this was not Sheldon Cooper as a kid. So that was kind of, that kind of took me out of it. That role is going to follow that poor kid around for the rest of his life.
Probably. I mean, but here's the thing. Meryl Streep is such an amazing actor, and I love it when she plays villain or villain-esque roles. Because, I mean, come on, Death Becomes Her, icon. But also, Jonathan Demme's Manchurian Candidate. I know I talked about the original last episode, and I watched Jonathan Demme's version. Meryl Streep in that is so good. She plays like Bush era politician to a T. Like she could have been a Senate. She could go for Senate. I would have believed it. I wouldn't have voted for her because she's a terrible person, that character. But I would have believed it.
Doesn't she play the president in something? I want to say Mars Attacks, but it's not Mars Attacks.
My Dreams.
See, I think it was Don't Look Up.
Yeah.
Yes, it was. Yeah. It was Don't Look Up.
That's
okay.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so it's not that far-fetched that she does play the president.
And then she was vice president in Air Force One, right, Jacob? Or was connected
no, that
it?
was Glenn Close.
Oh, that was Glenn Close.
Got it.
Oh, how could I do that to them? But no, Manchurian Candidate. There's this. I have to talk about this. There's this plot in the book where the mother is fucking the kid, the brainwash candidate, right? Played by Liev Schreiber in the new one. In the first movie, there's no mention of it except for this one scene where she has him hypnotized, and then they just basically make out, and it's so left field, and the movie just goes on without addressing it, and it's just like, no, go back. What the fuck was that kiss? And so with the Jonathan Demme one, which is also fantastic, Jonathan Demme's take on it, it was advertised as like a normal 2000s big budget thriller, which it's not. He does some really weird and uncomfortable things with that movie that I can't say I enjoyed, but I really appreciate. The staring down the barrel of the camera with the actors in a lot of scenes was really uncomfortable. And I love that he put the viewer in that state. But Meryl Streep, when it gets to that scene, I'm like, oh, are they going to make out? Is Meryl Streep about to kiss Liev Schreiber? Are we about to get uncomfortable? Worse. She like has him sitting and has him sit, like he's sitting and she's like kneeling in front of him and she's like telling him how much she loves him and how she did it all for him. And Meryl Streep gives this look, and that look just tells the whole ancestral story. And she just leans in just a little bit, and then it cuts away, and it's just like Meryl Streep is such an amazing actor that she gave this entire story of like that she's fucking her son.
She didn't need the kiss.
She didn't need the kiss. She didn't need to say shit. She just showed it, and like. I had to pause. I had to run out of the room. I was like, no. The power of the Streep, man.
Yeah.
And when is Mamma Mia 3 coming out? Seriously. I
feel like we're overdue.
Every time the trailer for Speak No Evil comes out, I get pissed off about two things. First thing I get pissed off about is that I think it's Mamma Mia 3 and it's not. And the second thing is they show the entire fucking movie in that trailer. So, anyways. Another new movie I watched recently was The Watchers. Did you guys get a chance to check that out yet?
No, I haven't seen that yet.
The Watchers is the first film from Ishana Night Shyamalan, M. Night Shyamalan's daughter. And it's about this 28-year-old American artist who finds shelter after getting lost in the woods in Ireland. And it's solid. There's some really interesting stuff that happens with the camera, some really interesting lighting work. She may have inherited her father's inability to end a movie, but I did see The Watchers with my partner who read the book that it's based on, and the director also wrote the screenplay. Lindsay said that they stuck too much to the book, like almost to a fault, and that's kind of how it plays out in the book as well. There's not really an ending, and it just kind of keeps going for some reason. But it's solid. There was parts of it that were a lot of fun. I really liked how they got into some of the, I don't want to spoil it too much, the folk horror aspects of certain Irish folklore that are very different than other cultures' interpretations of these beings. But some of the dialogue was just like a bit rough. There's a bit too much exposition, too much characters saying rather than showing. But all in all, I still had a lot of fun with it. I highly recommend it, especially if it's on streaming and you want to watch something to kill an afternoon. I'd recommend The Watchers. It's fun.
It's got my girl Dakota Fanning in it.
She's great.
I love Dakota Fanning.
When is she not? Like,
I know. Yeah, she's awesome.
But it also has Olwen. I'm gonna butcher her name. My apologies. Olwen Foray, who was in the last Texas Chainsaw movie. She played the character who came back from the first. Some really good acting on those, But yeah, the dialogue did not help.
I caught up with a couple of things that we've already talked about, so I don't want to talk too much about them. But I finally saw Godzilla Kong: The New Empire.
Yeah, boys are back in town.
And it
Bad
is
boy kaiju.
It's exactly what you guys were saying. It's a WWF SmackDown. There is a suplex, which I literally got off the couch and cheered. It was so awesome.
Oh,
and between that and the Fall Guy, Kiss is getting paid for that damn disco song that they all hate, because it is.
I was made for loving you, babe. Hey, that's a great album. I love the Kiss disco album.
But the other thing I saw that I'm catching up on is Immaculate, and all I can say about Immaculate is that ending. Oh my God!
Yeah.
Oh, it's one of those endings where you're like, oh, don't do that. Oh, you did that.
Real jaw dropper, huh?
Oh my God.
This is a good year for cinematic guttural screams between Immaculate and I Saw the TV Glow.
I would also say First Omen.
Yeah, and First Omen. Yeah, we're getting some real good guttural screams. Maybe that should be another list. Guttural screams of 2024.
Best guttural screams of the year.
Yeah,
you just got to have your primal screaming.
Oh man, it's great. And then just wait for Maxine, because we all know that Mia Goth is an amazing screamer as well.
I cannot wait for Maxine, because I just revisited Pearl and X for a piece I was writing, and I'm pumped for Maxine.
I just saw on Instagram they're advertising it a lot, and there's that clip of her just like walking past the audition line, and she's like, "Y'all better go home because I just fucking showed up," or something like that. And I'm just like, "Yes, icon, let's go!" All right.
Yeah. Oh, she's awesome.
I already pre-ordered my tickets, and we're going to the Alamo Draft House, so I pre-ordered they're having this thing where it's like a VHS shell, and the artwork is for a movie that Maxine's in it, like something like that, but there's no tape inside. It's just like stickers or whatever. But I need more space in my apartment filled up with garbage, so let's do it.
Why not? And just in terms of activities this month, one other thing I've been doing has been Junesploitation. Are either of you familiar?
I'm used to getting exploited in June, if that counts.
Aren't we all? But yeah, no, Junesploitation is this thing that was started by F This Movie, and it's basically just to have a calendar for June of a different type of movie to watch each day of the month. So, like the first of the month was the Roger Corman tribute, so I watched The Haunted Palace, and the other day was Ozploitation, so I watched Stone. And let's see, for the free day a couple days ago, I revisited one of my favorite John Waters movies, Cecil B. Demented, because turns out it's on Tubi.
Cecil B. Demented. Again, the realization recently on how much of my personality was shaped by mid 2000s Comedy Central, just showing the most unhinged movies in the middle of the afternoon. It was just like constant rotation of Cecil B. Demented and Wet Hot American Summer, and
that's how I saw Big Trouble in Little China.
Yeah, Big Trouble in Little China. Oh man, I just can't. That was so irresponsible, and is so responsible. Like they're responsible for how fucked I am. It's great.
And that's why cable TV is good.
Yes.
Yeah, no, but doing this also makes me excited for Hooptober, because I never managed to do it, but I really do want to join up with Jonathan this year and give it a go.
Real quick, if you guys were characters in Cecil B. Demented, which director would you get a tattoo of, and how would it see? Mine, I would do Cronenberg in the Civic TV font from Videodrome, the rainbow letters going down to be Cronenberg?
Oh, easy. I do John Carpenter in the John Carpenter font on my wrist.
Oh, no doubt it's Penelope Spheres, and it's going to be punk rock as shit with probably some spray paint and a couple of clothespins or something,
There's no A in Penelope Spheres for you to put the anarchy around, though.
Yeah, that's true.
You could put an A in the O in Penelope.
Oh, yeah, have it be the O and then the A on the inside. Yeah, for anarchy. Fuck yeah, dude. Let's do this. Are we doing this?
I'm in.
You know who has a Cecil B. Demented director tattoo like that? Is friend of the podcast, Benji Man, and he has a Sam Peckinpah tattoo.
Peckinpah.
Nice.
Yeah,
Yes.
he went with Peckinpah, which one of the first times I saw it, I went, oh, you like Convoy?
He's all, no, I like straw dogs.
Yeah, apparently Convoy isn't the one that gets everyone into Peckinpah, but whatever. I fucking love Convoy.
My favorite Peckinpah is the Wild Bunch.
I mean, Convoy is not my favorite Peckinpah. I will say that, but I do love Convoy.
Okay.
How could you not? Catchy song.
But yeah, while we're focusing on it, it is just kind of funny with the whole premise of Cecil B. Demented of film terrorists getting sick of the studio system and literally fighting against it in a guerrilla war while making a guerrilla film. And I feel like it could be done again today.
Yeah, I rewatched it not too long ago, and I was like, man, this movie was way too far ahead of its time, but it was also very relevant of its time, but also forever. Just a lot of that sentiment. And
I just think it's great. They took the Patty Hearst story and made it
She's actually in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Patty Hearst is in a lot of John Waters films. I never
She
understood
was in
that.
Serial Mom.
Oh, yeah, she wore white after Labor Day. Fashion has changed. No, it hasn't. Oh, icon.
And now let's bring in our special guest for the episode. This episode, we've got Paul Jones, who is the effects creator for What We Do in the Shadows, among a lot of other things. And we really want to talk to him. But how you doing, Paul?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, thanks for being here. The question I always like to start off with is, how did you get started doing what you do?
I'm still doing it the same way. It's basically been a hobby since I was 14. The only difference now is I get paid to do it. So if as soon as I lose that joy, then I need to move on to something else. It was literally that. I just did it on my friends and family. Halloween. The usual. I live in Northern England, so it's not really not really one of those hobbies that graduate to Northern England is doing prosthetic makeup. But, by the age of 16, I'd amassed enough pictures to kind of put together a nice little portfolio of, just kind of all these goofy makeups that I either done myself or copied from other people. Friend of a friend, sent some pictures down to London to the guys that did Hellraiser, which I hadn't seen at the time. And I got a call from Bob Keane and he said, do you want to come down for an interview? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Shepperton Studios, we could be down next Thursday. It'll be great. And I'm like, I'd never been to London, and here I am going to in Shepperton Studio. So I walked in the door and it was like, well, hi, I'm Bob Keane. I did Hellraiser. And I'm like, I hadn't seen it yet. And I'd seen the posters. I just hadn't seen it. And he goes like, what kind of a horror fan are you? And I goes, sorry. Anyway, 2 weeks later, I was working on a commercial. I was doing that for a couple of weeks and then the commercial ended and Bob said, so we got another show coming up in a month. And I said, honestly, Bob, I'm so homesick and kind of this weird kind of London is such an intense place if you come from a small town. And he said, well, go home, sort yourself out. And if you ever want to come back, there'll be a job waiting for you. So I took the train home, walked out the train station and went, wow, what a dump. Bob, can I come back to London? He goes, well, we don't start for 2 months. 2 months later, I moved to London, and that was the beginning of my career.
I love it. And that was Hellraiser 3 that you were.
No, that was the early days. That was the first movie I worked on was Waxwork 1 and a movie called The Unholy with Ben Cross.
Yes,
that was 1986, 87. I've been told Neil Gorton, who was one of the early image animation guys, told me that I actually started in 87. I thought it's 86. I thought it was 87. I have a terrible memory. So anyway, I was really young. I was 17.
IMDb, it lists those movies as 1988.
88. So we did them in 87. There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, looking through your IMDb, it looks like a lot of your early work was a lot under the Vestron video banner with, like Waxwork, The Unholy, Lair of the White Worm, Waxwork 2, Warlock, The Armageddon.
Yeah, they seem to be a bit of a pattern there.
Well, that led to one. I speak for me only, but I'm pretty sure that the other guys are also in agreement. You worked on Nightbreed.
Yes.
We love Nightbreed. And Nightbreed, even for the time, 1990, the effects and the prosthetics were way ahead of their time. So what was that like working on something like Nightbreed that was just so amazing?
Well, I mean, I was lucky to, get in with image animation when I did, because it was, they'd had some success with, Duran Duran Video. That was one of their first original shows. And then they got the Hellraiser movie and then a couple of other bits and pieces. But really, they got like Waxwork 2, but really Lair of the White Worm moved us to Pinewood, and that kind of set us up in a bigger space. So when Nightbreed came along, we were kind of set up for it. And yeah, it was, if I was running that show, I would have been incredibly intimidated, because it's not like today. I mean, we'll get into this later, but now you have the reliance of having another department to help you, like digital effects. Back then you didn't. So it was like, okay, we're going to do this movie that's entirely filled with like an army of creatures, and you're doing all of it. So we're all looking at Bob and Jeff, who were the two owners at the time, like, how are we going to do this? And they're like, we'll figure it out. And that's exactly what it was. It was just, we threw everything at the wall to see what would stick. I mean, some things were straightforward prosthetics. Some things were scratch build. Some things we would do out of the kit. We would just come up with different materials and slap them on the skin, see what they look like. I mean, it really was kind of like balls to the wall, because we got to a point where we realized that Midian is a much bigger place than we'd realized. And everything we'd envisioned just didn't fill it. I mean, that was what happened with the original shooting, because we shot the movie, and then who was the production company behind it? You guys should know. I should know. I can't remember.
That's a Jacob question.
I think that was Morgan Creek.
Morgan Creek. That's the one.
Creek.
Yeah.
There he goes. Knew we could count on Jacob.
Yeah. He's the brains of the organization.
Thank you.
They came back and said, Clive, we need better understanding of the story, and we need a lot more creatures. So after we wrapped the movie, we had, I think, 3 months of prep, and came back and shot for a whole nother month.
Wow.
And that's when we brought in Lylesburg. He wasn't in the original cut. The Berserkers, the close-up stuff with the Berserkers, they weren't in the original cut. Shuna Sassy, Leroy Gom, these were never in the original shoot for Nightbreed. We had no concept of them at all. They came afterwards, 3 months after we wrapped the entire movie. We came back and just shot all these little sequences and just kind of peppered them in. So really, I was on Nightbreed for almost 11 months total.
Wow.
Even though we shot it, prepped it, shot it, prepped it, shot it. So yeah, it was a big part of my life. And I bump into people now. I bump into Oscar winners. I bump into Emmy winners and BAFTA winners who watched Nightbreed as when they were like 11 years old, and it started their career. And they're like, this was my touchstone. My touchstone's like, Seventh Voyage of Sinbad, or, a little bit later would be like Star Wars, and then like American Werewolf in London, or the thing. For them, it was like Nightbreed. And I was like, really? That had such an impression on you? Because I look back at the stuff now, and there's a few things I personally would have done differently with my work. And I know a couple of the other guys would have said the same thing. But as a movie fan, it would have done the same thing with my career. It would have just kickstarted me into the next realm to say, this is what I want to do for a living, In
college, I had an effects makeup course, and there was a whole unit on Nightbreed. So when you say, how influential it is, it really is. And that's why when I saw it on your IMDb that we were interviewing you, I'm like, oh, yes, Nightbreed, yes. It really is amazing work. It really is.
It was, it's fun. And it's nice because I'm still friends with a lot of the guys that I worked with. In fact, I just spent 2 summers ago, I spent about 10 months working with Mark Coulier on a couple of things back in the UK. And he was one of the original Nightbreed guys. So it was nice to kind of keep in touch with those guys. And we still have the same stories and, the same kind of love-hate relationship with Nightbreed, because we did some of our best and worst work. That's how we describe it.
I mean, still proud. It comes out effectively, and with the new transfers and the new multiple cuts that are out now of it, the effect shines. So, it's
good,
still
good.
such a special place.
Glad to hear it. Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, and as I was saying before, a lot of your early work was with Anthony Hickox, and I wanted to ask, what was it like working with him across several movies?
Oh, he's like the world's biggest nerd, but also at the same time, the coolest guy, I would say, alive. And fortunately, he passed away. He was like every kind of schoolboy's inspiration, because he was this kind of just amazingly kind of sophisticated guy with tons of talent, always surrounded himself with like amazingly attractive people. And he loved monster movies. He loved horror. So that was my first time actually going to LA, was flying to Los Angeles to shoot Waxwork 2. There was me, a guy named Steve, a guy named Mark, a guy named Martin, and Bob Keane. And we basically all kind of crashed in a place in Burbank and got to work on Waxwork 2. And if you watch the courtroom scene, when Zach Galligan sits down, I'm sat right behind him. A very young looking Paul Jones. I'm the bookend to the movie. Whenever you see a severed hand come running in and then kill Buck Flowers, it's me. I'm actually in the credits as the hand. I still have a scar here from the carpet burn of me running along the thing like this, being dragged through carpet.
Oh,
the good old days where you could just go, I want to be in a movie. You know, and they say, yeah, sure. There's no SAG, there's no union rules. We didn't have any 706, and you know, it was just like fly by the seat of the pants. I didn't think we had work permits. It was basically just get off the plane, say you're here to drop some stuff off, and the next thing you know, you're working at a studio in the valley. It was like, okay, whatever. It's 1988 or whenever it was. Who cares? You know, it was an amazing experience. So Anthony he just really knew his stuff. He just knew his stuff, like inside and out. So working with him, there was like this shorthand right away. He'd always reference other shows, but he had his own style. Yeah, it was like, again, it was the beginning of my career, and it's been kind of an inspiration ever since, really.
Really enjoy his movies, Full Eclipse especially. That for me is such a cool movie. I remember seeing scenes from it as a kid.
No one's seen it.
Yeah,
it's a fantastic movie.
They won't put it on anything.
The chase scene on the cars when the cops running from roof to roof. It's like, this was done like 40 years ago or something stupid. It was crazy, you know?
I have a VHS of it, and the DVD is so hard to find these days. I don't know why.
Oh yeah. You can't find it.
Jill Ripper just got
occasionally you Oh, who did?
Jill Rip or
Jill Rips.
Ripper.
Okay.
Or Jill Rips.
That was the show that was a show Tony shot in Toronto that I couldn't work on.
Oh.
He actually did that old director buddy thing and says, hey man, it's Tony, I'm in town, so I'm doing this movie and you got to work on it. And I'm like, what? I'm right in the middle of a show. And he's like, no, just take some time off and come and do this little movie for me. I couldn't do it. It was like, I was gutted, but it was like I'd already established myself in Toronto at that point, and I was right in the middle of a series. I think it was Earth Final Conflict or something, and he was just like, and he was a little miffed that I couldn't do it. But you know, when I wasn't working for Bob Keane, so I couldn't spread myself that thin. Unfortunately, you know, it happens.
I hear you. Well, I mean, we definitely love your older stuff, but your work, you never stop working. Just go, you know, seeing your name pop up in so many different things. And most recently, you know, Poor Things, which looked amazing.
That was the 10 months I spent in the UK working with Mark Coulier. We did the first trip out. We did Asteroid City, Poor Things, and a thing called Blood Origin, which was the Witcher prequel.
Oh, nice.
And then the second trip out for 5 months was just The Witcher with Cavill, his last season.
Oh.
So it was great. It was great. It was like I was offered season 4 of Shadows. I did season 1, 2, and 3, What We Do in the Shadows. And they said, we're doing season 4, but we're starting in like 6 weeks. And I said, guys, I'm exhausted. I'm burnt out. And I've just been offered this really excellent chance to go back to the UK and work for a buddy of mine who has a couple of Oscars and work with people I've just been admiring for years. And I really have to take the opportunity. So they said, okay, fine, you can go. So I went out there and it was great. It was like being surrounded by people that I'd been following on Instagram, and I'd been kind of following their work for years. And then Mark's there, who I've known since I was 18 years old. He was one of the first guys I met in the industry. And that was a great experience. I mean, doing alien suits on Jeff Goldblum and, being on set with Henry Cavill. And it was like a whirlwind. It was like great. And I've done some stuff. It's not like I was like, but it was like I was like a 15-year-old kid again, because I wasn't in charge. So I didn't have to be the grown up. So I was able to regress a little bit and be this kind of fanboy on set while doing this kind of like grown up work. It was actually a perfect situation. It was like all the glory, but none of the stress. It was really, really fun. Yeah, I loved it.
I was actually going to ask that. What did you do for Asteroid City? Because it doesn't look like there's that much makeup effects, but it would be the alien on Jeff Goldblum.
That was it. That was for I came in at month 3 on that. And it was about 5 months of work for that bloody suit. It was originally all the alien in the movie. All the alien was supposed to be Jeff in the suit. But then with Jeff and the mobility of the suit and the leg extensions and the coming down a ladder and doing all these kind of weird poses, they figured it would be best suited to switch it to stop motion. So then they limited his live action to him walking down the aisle of all these A-list stars, which by itself was surreal, because I'm there with Mark and like one other person in Spain, and they built this little set, and I'm like stood on set holding Jeff's head, and it's like Jeff Goldblum. Behind me is like Willem Dafoe, Scarlett Johansson was there, Matt Dillon was there, Bryan Cranston was there, and they're all just sat there. It's like everywhere you look was a person's face who can greenlit a movie. And they were all there. And then when they were waiting between takes, they were just sitting in a tent chilling. There's no entourage, no nothing. It was like kind of guerrilla filmmaking almost, even though it was like a proper set and the proper producers in LA and everything. I mean, Bill Murray was there just hanging out. He was just there to hang out. Yeah. It was like, again, I've done a lot of shows, but to be in that situation, I was able to kind of like stand back and just enjoy it as a fanboy, as well as be responsible for the work, because I wasn't responsible. I was just responsible to my boss. It was like one of the most surreal experiences, It's amazing.
Jeff Goldblum is the punchline to that whole alien thing, because when they go through the behind the scenes and he's talking about his character, that just killed me. Like the knowing that it's Jeff Goldblum at that point just killed me.
I'm doing it as a metaphor. Yeah, metaphor as well. Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous. Well, it's funny because you don't see it until the very end of the movie. So I'm watching the movie and I'm loving it. And I'm like, are we going to see the suit? And it was like 12 minutes before the end. And I was like, oh, my God, they cut the suit out. And then it was like, boom, there he is. And I was like, oh, thank heavens. I was really worried all that work was going to be gone. But no, it was really fun. It was an amazing experience. It really was.
Another one of your more recent ones that I wanted to ask about is Beau is Afraid. Now, right. Tell me you did the penis monster in Beau is Afraid.
Well, I can't claim fame. I can't claim ownership of anything in that movie because it was actually, I was working for a buddy of mine named Steve Newburn, AA Effects Company. You should look up his website. He does amazing work. Where Steve was originally an LA guy, and his wife's Canadian. He moved to Toronto, and I was one of the first people who hired him. And then over the years, he kind of evolved and set up his own shop. And I'm actually working for him right now on his new movie, which I can't tell you about because I just signed an NDA, but it's going to be really cool. So Steve got Beau is Afraid. He's kind of Ari Aster's guy. And it was kind of funny because I bid on Hereditary way back when, and then it left Toronto and it went somewhere else. And Steve ended up doing it because Steve's a US citizen. So he was able to kind of do that and bridge the gap between Canada and the US. And ever since then, he's been kind of Ari's guy. So he got Beau is Afraid. And right when Shadows ended and before I went off to do Poor Things, that I had like a 3-week window. So he's like, we're sculpting this giant penis. Can you please come and give us a hand? So I came in and me and like 6 other people basically got to sculpt. I sculpted the shaft and some of the balls. I never touched the head and I never did anything else after that. I walked out right when they were getting ready to mold it, but literally this thing was massive. Like I could have lived inside one of the testicles, no problem.
I'll bet that's a phrase you didn't think you were going to be saying in this interview. I sculpted the shaft and the balls.
Some of the balls, not all of them, because they were too bloody big. Yeah, it was crazy. I still haven't seen the movie. My kids have seen it. I have a 17-year-old and a 21-year-old daughters, and they've seen it and I haven't. And they were like, "Oh, it was so crazy!" And we saw your name at the end. But if you watch one of the Resident Evils, you'll see their name at the end because I snuck their names into credits over the years.
Oh.
So they actually have. I should actually set them up as an IMDb because they both have about 5 credits each. It's really funny. They've never been on set in their lives.
Man, I what an awesome life you live, man. Because I wish I could get a call that goes, "Hey, are you doing anything for the next few weeks? Because we need help working on this monster cock. We could really use your hands in sculpting this thing."
Thanks, guys. I mean, I'm a monster kid. I grew up reading Fangoria and Gore Zone, reading Cinefex. I watched every making of that you could get your hands on. I fooled around with latex and plaster in my bedroom when I was 11 years old. So really, I'm still that kid. And I think that's why I've had such a nice run of it over the years, because I haven't lost that kind of childhood enthusiasm for this job. Because at the end of the day, how many people get to say they make monsters for a living? Like, nobody gets to say that apart from a very small demographic of people. So why shouldn't I just be enthusiastic about it every single day? Plus, you look at even like Rick Baker. If you look at him now, he's still making monsters. He's retired, but he just makes like creatures and masks, and they're all amazing. And he just does it at home for fun. He's basically doing the same thing he did when he was 15 years old, except now he has like 7 Oscars and millions of dollars in the bank. But he still gets joy making little figures and making masks and everything. That's like the dream for me. It's like, as long as I'm able to do it, I'm always going to do it. So when I get out for a job, that enthusiasm comes through. And I think that's why I've been able to secure as many projects as I have. Plus, Toronto's been a pretty good town for me, that it's a service town. So a lot of products come through. So I've been able to do films and TV, which if I'd stayed back in the UK, I probably wouldn't have had the opportunities.
Back on the subject for What We Do in the Shadows, I wanted to ask how you got involved in the TV show.
It was really simple. I worked with a producer named Hartley Gorenstein. We had done Silent Hill 2. We'd done a couple of the Resident Evils, and he was the line producer on those movies. And we'd done a couple of TV things. And he gave me a call one day, and he goes, "I'm doing this TV series. We're starting in a couple of weeks. It's about vampires living in a house together. It's a comedy. It's like Spinal Tap. It's based on a movie. Do you know what I'm talking about?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's called What We Do in the Shadows. I shot it in 2011. It's Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi, and it was shot in Wellington." And he's like, okay. So you know what I'm talking about? Well, we're doing the series of that. Do you want to work on it? And I'm like, I had to stop myself from saying I'll do it for free. And that was literally it. Two weeks later, I was in a meeting with Jermaine, and Taika came in the week after, and I had to make fangs for them, and I had to sit in meetings with them, and I'm like, oh my God, thank you. Whatever I'd done in life to get me to this position, because it really, I mean, obviously my career's not over, and obviously I'm not done yet because I'm still a relatively young man, 56. But I really feel like everything has been kind of moving towards this one series, because apart from having a little break on season 4, because I went off to the UK to work on Poor Things, I came back at the end of season 4 and helped finish the season. And then right away they said, "Okay, you're back now. You can take over the show." So I ended up doing 5 and 6. So I've pretty much been there for the whole time, if not physically, but in spirit. And it truly has been my entire portfolio in one series. I have done old age makeups. I've done demon makeups. I've done zombies. I've done dead bodies. I've done werewolves. I've done vampires. I've done monster vampires. I've done doll puppets. I've done ancient vampire animatronic bodies. It's like you can literally look at each episode of that show and it's like a different page in my portfolio.
Yeah.
And to do it with the most talented bunch of people in the world, the funniest bunch of actors and talent I've ever worked with in my career, on a show that is literally a famous effects guy in LA named Steve Johnson came up with the best way to describe it. He said, it's a modern Addams Family.
Yep.
And to be involved in something like that, because how much life the Addams Family has. I think what we do in the shadows, shows come and go, but I think what we do in the shadows is going to be one of those shows that people are going to be watching 10, 15, 20 years from now. I really do.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, no doubt. And I do appreciate all the practical effects work on the show, because I feel like especially for primetime shows like that, it's harder to come by. But yeah, it's just a monster mash. Like there's just been so many monsters and creatures and such varieties. It's a joy to watch it every week and think, oh, what's going to pop up next?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's definitely been an aesthetic of the show that they want to keep as much practical in camera as possible. I mean, obviously we have a great visual effects team and they're able to produce some amazing stuff, but the aesthetic of the show with the vampires in the house, documentary style, you know, Jermaine and Taika were very adamant right from the beginning, as much as we can do in camera as possible. And then Paul Sims, who took over the show, and Kyle and Yana, who direct, they like having stuff. They like having tangible stuff they can grab hold of. They're very tactile people. So yeah, it's I've been very, very lucky, but also very busy. I mean, each season they say, well, we didn't kill you this season. Just wait till next season. And then this season we just finished. Yeah, they came close to putting me in the grave. They really did. But we managed to put some stuff off. But that's okay because, you know, vampires, they sleep in their coffins. So I'll just be back for more later, you know.
You'll rise from the grave.
I especially want to talk about, because like the original movie is so good, but it's very low budget. You know, there wasn't that much. So having that, but bringing that humor over, which is brilliant. That's one of my favorite movies. It was done so well. And then to have that added thing of like, we have a budget and we're doing creatures every week. But one of the best episodes, I think, for practical effects was the hybrid creatures from last season 5.
Yeah.
And what a challenge, what a challenge idea of doing like Island of Dr. Moreau type hybrids, but they all have a bit of Guillermo in them. Tell us about what was it like taking on that challenge?
That was it. It was intense because originally in the script, like Paul Sims, the showrunner, had given me a heads up before we'd even started prep. And he goes, okay, the script's going to be out soon, but I want to give you a heads up. I have an Island of Dr. Moreau episode and I'm looking at having about a dozen creatures made just to give you a heads up. And I'm like, oh my fucking hell. Okay, great. You know, so came in, got the script. Yeah, there's about 9 or 10 creatures in there. Each interview I always give a different number, but I think it was about 9 originally. And I said, okay, this is fine. I can do all of this, but don't you think 9 is too many, especially if they're all in the same room at the same time, because the camera's doing this. So you're going to miss some stuff. So can we pare it down a little bit? And he's like, okay, what do you think we should do? And I said, I definitely want to do a dog. I definitely want to do a pig, because they're kind of cute. Let's do a lamb because it'd be fun to have a lamb. And then let's scale it down and do some frogs and some toads and maybe a kind of a rat creature because there was a rat in the script. And he was like, great, get designing. So that was it. I started with Harvey's face and we did a cyber scan of him and we shrunk him down to different sizes. And then everything was based around Harvey because originally, like way in the early days of pre-production, they were considering putting Harvey in all the makeups and shooting them all separately and then digitally putting him in the frame. And we realized almost within the same breath, well, that's a stupid idea. There's no way we can do that on our time frame. So we just took we took some very talented actors from Toronto who are of diminutive size, and they were super talented, and they could also enthusiastically wear the prosthetics. And we designed the look of the prosthetics based on Harvey's face. So that's why it's got Guillermo hair. And it's about the same kind of build and kind of facial features, but then really kind of turned up the kind of the animalistic look of them, but at the same time, keeping them grounded. Because one of the things Paul Sims always says is he goes, always find the funny. And what he means by that is don't make them funny. Make what they do and the situations they're in funny, but keep them grounded so that they still live within this world. Like, the werewolves are still dangerous. You know, the demons are still dangerous. Like Carol from one of the episodes are dangerous. Whenever we see the Baron, he's still lethal. But it's what they do, the way you get the laugh from. So the animals still had to look kind of sad and kind of freaky and mutant-y, but not so much that you're laughing at them. You're laughing with them. And I think that's what really comes across in the episode. But discipline-wise, I mean, we did silicone prosthetics, we did foam latex prosthetics, we were doing hair punching, we were doing flocking. Then we got to do some really nice little rod puppets as well. We got to do some animatronic creatures. And then we have this thing in the pond called Binky, which is actually one of my favorite creations because there's this great shot of him swimming in the pool. And all it was a very simple rig with, you get those plastic snakes that kind of only move, but they're only on one axis. So imagine a metal version of that inside a silicon body rigged to a pole. So as you drag it through the water and wiggle it, the actual fluid dynamics make the silicon tail swish around. So we have this almost realistic looking fish, like amphibian, swimming in a pond. And I was like leaning over the pond in full green screen with this big pole, puppeteering it. And they only shoot it in close up. I was so mad at Kyle. I was like, it literally looks like a real bloody fish, and you shoot only one shot of it in close up. But if you watch the show and you go to my Instagram account, you can actually see a test video of it. And that was the one thing I was really happy with. But that was one of so many other things in the episode. And luckily, it stood out enough that we were able to submit it for an Emmy, and fingers crossed, other people like it as much as we did. So you never know, right?
Oh man, the dog makeup alone from that episod deserves all the awards. He looks fantastic. Just the shot of him sitting there wearing the Nets shirt.
It's so Laura Montgomery, our costume designer, was really fun because she knew we had like a partial bodysuit with like one human limb and one animal limb, so she's able to dress them accordingly. But whenever you put human clothes on creatures, it's just like a perfect recipe for kind of craziness,
Yeah, and you were right about the pig. It was cute in that ugly kind of way.
Yes, exactly, right? So you want to hug it, but not for very long. That's what I was saying.
I highly recommend to everyone listening to follow Paul on Instagram. I've been following you for a little bit now, and it is so cool seeing the behind the scenes. And you have been posting a lot of stuff from what we do in the shadows in that episode, and just seeing the work that goes into it and the effects and the different testing. It's so cool. And we're monster kids too, so we love seeing that.
Thank you. I mean, social media is it's not in its infancy, but my use of it is. So I'm trying to post at least once a week now, because I've got stuff going back to the 80s that I can post. I have test videos from Waxwork 2. I have Lair the White Worm photographs. I have behind the scenes of Nightbreed. I have Nemesis from one of the Resident Evil movies. I have Ginger Snap stuff. I have all kinds of stuff that I should be posting, and I'm just too bloody lazy. So I will start posting because I am a monster fan. I know there's a lot of monster kids out there, and we've got to stay strong, because even though digital's a big piece of the pie now, the new generation of directors coming in are your guys' age, and they grew up watching VHS tapes, and they grew up watching Rubber Monsters. So even though they know digital effects inside and out, they still want something they can pick up on set. They still want something they can actually film that then they can just CG to kind of modify and augment it. So everything now is a hybrid effect. And that's the thing I think that is going to keep me working for many years to come, is the fact that the technology in prosthetics has come along, but also CG isn't just the only tool in toolbox anymore. It's just one of the tools, and prosthetic makeup it's still got a nice kind of slot in that toolbox,
The excuse for not posting is not laziness. It's that you're too busy.
Yeah, you're very busy.
I have been rather busy. Yes.
That's what it is.
The last season of Shadows, I was averaging 13-hour days, 7 days a week, just for the last month and a half. But guys, I'm making monsters. I was like a kid in a candy shop. I was like doing Can't Talk About That over there, and I was doing 5 Can't Talk About Those over there. It's all from season 6. I can't tell you. Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for you because you're obviously fans of the show. I just ruin it. Talked about all the cool stuff we did.
So what are speaking of can't talk about this here and there, what is coming up for you? What do you got coming on next? Is there anything you can talk about? You mentioned an NDA that you just signed. Is there anything that is out of embargo that you can talk to us?
Yeah, I just worked with a director who did The Nun, and I'm pretty sure Jacob knows who his name is. Colin, and he also did. I didn't come prepared because I wasn't expecting that question, but I just did a movie with his. Me and Steve Newburn actually shared the effects because there was so much in it. That the movie's called Whistle, and then we just finished production on that beginning of this year. So that's a really fun horror movie that's going to come out. And I'm currently working on a very large Screen Gems video game adaptation of a movie based on a video game, and that's as much as I can tell you.
That's awesome.
Yeah, no, it's nice. What I'm trying to do now is kind of push to the side me taking on shows and running a crew and running a workshop to actually go work in for other people's crews, because I have a lot of friends in town. Most of the guys that run shops in Toronto used to work for me back in the day, so now they all owe me. So I'm pulling in favors now to say, hey, I need 3 months work. Give me some work, you know? Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure I'm going to be busy, but the show I'm on right now will take me till probably end of September. And then I'm going to take a little bit of time off. And then hopefully in the new year, I'll go straight onto something else.
Now, where can people follow you on the socials? You mentioned you have an Instagram. If they want to keep up with what's coming up for you?
Instagram at Paul Jones FX. FFX. That's pretty the best place, because that's really where I post most of my work. I do have some stuff on Facebook, but I'm going to be scaling that back for more kind of friends and family. And I'll be shifting all the stuff I posted there onto my Instagram. And I have a website as well, pauljonesfx.com. Again, needs updating, but there's pretty much my whole portfolio in there. And of course, IMDb, if you want to see all the great, tedious and awful movies I've done over the years.
Oh. And you can scroll through his resume and you'll be amazed at what he has worked on, just like we were. So yeah, Paul, thank you for joining us this afternoon. And we're rooting for you for the Emmys. We want you to pull that Emmy.
Who is the competition? Because I don't think there is. No offense to everyone else.
No, I actually there's some really great makeups. Of course, Fallout's up in contention. There's a great one with Robert Downey Jr. There's some fantastic makeups in that. Of course, my friend Dave Elsey did all the stuff for True Detective with all the Frozen makeups. There's some really good stuff there. No, there's some really good stuff. I just really hope I can sneak in amongst the big boys, because I know Shadows gets nominated a lot. We won Best Costume. We've been nominated for Best Comedy. There's been some other craft awards. But no love for prosthetics yet. So I'm hoping with these furry little guys that we can kind of sneak in as the outlier. And I just want a free meal, basically. I just want a free meal and meet some great makeup talent and shake their hands when they win their Emmy. I don't care about winning. I just want to turn up and just kind of be recognized just for the show, because everybody loves Shadows. There's two kinds of people in the world: people who love Shadows and people who haven't seen it yet.
Exactly.
That's the two kind of people. So I'm really hoping that the people who've seen it love it enough to just give me a little tick before the end of voting, which is in about 5 days. So
okay. Well, we're rooting for you and we'll be watching.
Amazing.
So thanks again for joining us. Our theme song is by Restless Spirits, so go give them a listen. Our artwork is by Chris Fisher, so go give him a like. For us on the socials, you can find us at iHorror anywhere, the socials. If you are not tired of hearing Correia's voice, he's guesting on our sister podcast. You want to tell us about that real quick?
Oh, yes. This is about 2 or 3 years in the making. I got invited to Murmurs from the Morgue to talk about our favorite DILFs in horror. It's a nice little Father's Day episode. Don't worry, we were very respectful, or we said we were going to be respectful. We were. But yeah, come join me on Murmurs from the Morgue as we mainly just talk about Train to Busan, because there's some hot dads in that movie. So, it gets steamy over there.
And also, if you're listening to this the day it posts, go to our socials, because we have a Quiet Place Day 1 giveaway happening.
Yes.
Which will open the Friday after this post. So you can go and see A Quiet Place Day 1 on us. And we'll call this one an episode with that. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks. So for me, James J. Edwards.
I'm Jacob Davison.
I'm Jonathan Correia.
And Paul Jones.
Keep your eye on horror.